Tulsi Gabbard, she put forward a new bill. Okay, she proposed this a piece of legislation in Congress, which would essentially reform the Espionage Act. Okay, so let me pull this up for you. This is House Resolution 1175. Okay, so it starts out, first of all, by saying that this resolution is expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that news gathering activities are protected under the First Amendment, and that the United States should drop all charges against and attempts to extradite Julian Assange. So this is a very short bill, but its intention is very clear. So it's meant to reform the Espionage Act. Now, look, I want to be very clear here. What Tulsi Gabbard is doing here, this is light years ahead of any of these other hacks in Congress. I mean, have you heard anything from AOC? Have you heard anything from the Squad, which are lauded as these brilliant, young, bright progressives? Silence, radio silence. They haven't opened their mouths about Assange. Even Bernie Sanders. You know, they all said something vaguely when during last year when the indictment was served, but then ever since, not a peep. So what she's doing here, this is light years ahead. She's not just criticizing the extradition. She's not just criticizing the persecution. She's actually trying to do something about it. So I credit where credit is due. Seriously. The only problem I have with this, because I was in court, I was there at the hearing, I listened to 4 weeks about the Espionage Act. My only criticism here is that I don't think reforming it is enough. The Espionage Act is a political tool. From the beginning, man, from 1917, from its inception, it was designed to shut people up. If you are a political dissident, you will go to jail. It doesn't matter if you're a journalist. And so when she makes a point about news gathering activities, that's great. And this would help Assange, definitely. But it goes beyond Assange. And I think Julian himself would agree with that. Look at Eugene Debs, for example. This guy was a presidential candidate. He was jailed in 1918. He's not a journalist. He had the audacity to speak out against the First World War. They jailed him for 10 years. They took away his fucking citizenship because he dared to speak out against the draft. Can you believe that? And the Supreme Court upheld this decision. And of course, he's not the only example. Ever since, they've been trying to use it against anyone, any political dissident. They try to use it against Daniel Ellsberg, for example, for the Pentagon Papers. And it's only because of government misconduct that the case was thrown out. And of course, Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, they've been trying so hard over and over to establish a legal precedent where they can get a successful conviction of a journalist using the Espionage Act. So you can't reform that. That's my point. The whole thing should be scrubbed. It has no purpose whatsoever. It's been used almost overwhelmingly, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, overwhelmingly against political dissidents, journalists, whistleblowers. Not spies, as the name implies. That's my point. That's my only criticism of it. So I don't think you can reform that. It's really not something that was ever designed to be fair or transparent. And a broader point that I would like to make here, which goes beyond just this piece of legislation, the Bill 1175, you have to understand something. It doesn't matter what the law says, because the prosecution are bending the law to their will. They don't care what it says. You know, the Extradition Act itself, the Extradition Act between the UK and the US, which was written in 2003 and then was ratified in 2006, 2007 by the US, it forbids extradition for a prisoner to face a political trial. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. They're still trying to extradite him, even though the trial is political. Do you understand? The most basic fundamentals of of a right to due process under the British legal system, under the US legal system, have been thrown out of the window. UC Global, on behalf of the US intelligence services, was spying on Julian Assange when he was talking to his lawyers. Any judge would throw this case out immediately. You can't use tainted evidence. And yet here we are. It's going ahead as if nothing happened. We heard the 2 witness statements from the UC Global employees. Just continued as if nothing happened. It was left till day 17, the second last day of the hearing. So do you understand my point here? Even when the law is being violated in plain sight, they don't care. They're still going to do it. And moreover, if you look at the fact that the US served a superseding indictment past the deadline with no new charges, no new counts, just this added spam inside of there, as they refer to as conduct, right? trying to paint Assange as even more sinister and nefarious so that they can get him harsher sentencing once in the US. She accepted it. The judge accepted the superseding indictment past the deadline. She was even holding Assange in Belmarsh prison on an outdated indictment. Just randomly. Like, yeah, we don't actually have an indictment to keep you in jail, but we're going to keep you anyway because you're a political prisoner. That's why. This is madness. So my point here is that it doesn't matter how many resolutions you put forward. Unfortunately, we're dealing with a duo of two monsters. Okay, as I said the other day, the United States is essentially a demon spawn of the United Kingdom. They don't give a fuck what the law says. They will bend it to their will. And you saw the same thing with the mass surveillance, right? Dick Cheney, his lawyer David Addington, within 24 hours of 9/11, he signs the presidential surveillance program and they start mass surveillance. On 9/11, within 24 hours, it started. And Congress only found out years later. Well, some of them already knew. You can guess which ones. But once they found out, it wasn't shut down. They legalized it. They found a way to legalize what was illegal. So yes, unfortunately, I'm being very pessimistic with this outlook, but it's the truth. These countries do not govern based on the rule of law. They're rogue states. They're tyrants. They will find whatever justification they can to bend the law to their will, and when they're presented with a roadblock, they will make what is illegal legal. They will get away with murder. They will get away with wars. They will get away with war crimes. They will get away with persecuting journalists. It is very unfortunate. Nonetheless, I commend Tulsi Gabbard for this. Although I'd like to point out that if you read the bill, you can see here that this line, for example, says that the disclosure of United States military documents exposed war crimes against civilians in the Middle East. I mean, this is 100% true. My fear, however, is that just based off of this line alone, you know that there are going to be people in Congress who will shoot this down immediately. Because they will never admit that the United States committed war crimes. Even though Tulsi Gabbard herself is a major, right? 16, 17 years in the National Guard. I mean, she can clearly see that. But you will have people, of course, who will never admit that, who will refuse, just based on this line alone, to accept this bill in any capacity, right? It's very unfortunate that this is the reality we're dealing with on both sides of the Atlantic. You know, you have governments running wild, killing people like gangsters, pirates. And to hold them accountable, even one iota, is impossible. I mean, you would think that they are being named in this document. We're 17 years after the fact now, after the Iraq War started, right? No, they won't accept. They will not take responsibility in any regard. You know it. And we're not just talking about Republicans, even people in the Democratic Party.